this edition of Training Camp Live, presented by American Airlines, we get an up-close and personal look at the defensive line, showing off some agility and some athleticism in the final unpadded practice of Training Camp 2022. Coming up next.
Touchdown.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome into a brand new edition of Training Camp Live presented by American Airlines. And for the first time on DallasCowboys.com, we welcome Patrik Walker to the website, to the team. And we've got some training camp to look after. I'm Kyle Youmans. Glad you're with us. What are we looking for here in this defensive lineman drill? This is just O&D fundamentals. We're looking at some of the baseline here.
Well, right now what we're looking for is a refinement of technique. Obviously, Kyle, we're sitting here in training camp. A lot of work still to be done between now and the regular season opening up against the Buccaneers on September 11th. So you're looking for, with the veterans as well, but more specifically with some of the younger guys, to see how their hand technique looks, how their footwork looks. Are they able to cover in space? If you look at this play right here, good space, good technique there, good follow-through, drive-through on the tackle. Want to make sure they're wrapping up as well. So these are just some basic fundamentals that have to be taught and refined before you can go to the next level in this game.
Yeah, this is Marcavious Bryant, the rookie out of Cincinnati that's going at the moment. But you're going to see a bunch of these guys rotate through. Here's Demarcus Lawrence, of course, as he's entering as the veteran of the group. But Dan Quinn asks his defensive linemen to do a number of things. He wants them to be able to break out of the line of scrimmage and go back and cover. He wants those guys to have some versatility to get to the second level and then, of course, come up and make plays when need be. So how imperative is it like this to build that kind of momentum? Dorrance Armstrong going at the moment to where when the time comes, they can execute the way that they are on the practice field.
It's absolutely paramount to be able to be successful in a scheme run by Dan Quinn. If you look at what Dan Quinn was able to achieve in year one as defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys, a lot of that was predicated upon versatility, as you mentioned, and not simply with Micah Parsons, fluctuating between the defensive end role and the linebacker role. If you look at it, Dan Quinn likes to mix it up between three-man fronts, four-down man fronts, and in that sometimes you're going to see some of those interior defensive linemen have to pop out and rush off of the edge, but then at the same time you're going to sometimes see them drop back in coverage. So the question is, can you cover to break up some of those bubble screens, or at least to create a distraction to make errant passes, make it easier on your defensive backs and your fellow linebackers in the backfield behind you. But at the end of the day, it's going to always be about a lot more than simply rushing the passer and stopping the run if you're on the defensive line in a Dan Quinn defense.
And especially in practices like this, there's no pads on. This is where the defensive line is going to get a lot of their work in, because we haven't seen the physicality yet. The Cowboys put the practice pads on for the first time on Monday, so that's really the end of the ramp-up period, and then things really get underway next week. But up until this point, we haven't had a great chance to look at some of these newcomers on the defensive line, and as they work their way this direction, you see a number of those guys. Dante Fowler Jr. wearing the number 56 in the blue uniform. I guess everybody in this drill is in a blue uniform. I don't necessarily have to differ at this point in practice, but at number 56, he's coming in after a couple of different stops along the way. He had 11.5 sacks back in 2019 for the Los Angeles Rams. What do you expect out of him this year as he comes in his first season with the Cowboys?
I'm going to expect something big from Dante Fowler. Now, does that mean I expect that he'll go on a tear that puts him on a Pro Bowl as a Pro Bowl honoree? Not necessarily. You would love to see him be able to come in and do something like that, but for someone who has the experience and a pre-existing relationship with Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator, we've seen that for the most part, Dan Quinn can bring the best out of a lot of his players, so it stands to reason that he will be able to do it that much more so with a player he's already had experience with. Obviously, Dante Fowler spent time with Dan Quinn with the Atlanta Falcons prior to the Dallas Cowboys. So with Dante Fowler, I'm looking for him to come in and make an impact at a position of need for the Cowboys, be it as in a starter position or at least impact as depth. And if he can't do that, or if that's not necessarily going to be his strong point, then look for him to make an impact on special teams. At this point, even though he's a veteran, he understands that he's going to have to come in and make an impact wherever the Cowboys need him, be that with Quinn and or with John Bones Fossil.
Here's a look at Dante Fowler Jr. And we know you're looking through the trees a little bit here. We're kind of looking through a couple of guys that are waiting for their turn in the drill, but you're getting a chance to see the get off first. I mean, they're in that three-point stance. They're coming off of the edge, and then you see the bend from a couple of these guys. Here's, of course, Marcavious Bryant, who we mentioned a little bit earlier. We've already seen Sam Williams, Demarcus Lawrence, and then Dante Fowler Jr., Dorrance Armstrong working through the drill. This is one of the favorite drills for Ed and Dirty, one of the defensive defensive line coaches, and being able to see some of the growth from these guys as you see Demarcus Lawrence rip through the pads.
Absolutely. When you talk about someone like Demarcus Lawrence, he's looked upon to set the standard when it comes to the defensive line for the Dallas Cowboys, and has been for some time now, but particularly this season with the loss of Randy Gregory to free agency, headed out to the Denver Broncos. You love that they brought back a guy like Durance Armstrong, or I should say re-signed Durance Armstrong to an extension in free agency here. That at least provides some type of insurance at the right edge. When you also combine that with second-round pick rookie Sam Williams, hearing great things about Sam Williams, his strength, his bend, his ability to get out there and get after the quarterback. And then, of course, you're going to have Micah Parsons helping on that edge as well. Sure. But when you're looking at a drill like this, you're looking at Demarcus Lawrence and you're looking at his bend, his get-off. How can he and how effectively does he get around that corner? Because that's the name of the game, is burning the edge in the NFL. And, Demarcus Lawrence has been one of the better defensive ends at both that and stopping the run. So some of these younger guys, Terrell Basham, not necessarily a younger guy, but most certainly young to the Cowboys roster. Some of these guys are definitely looking at Demarcus Lawrence to set the tone, and I believe that he's going to continue to do that.
Yeah, he's usually the first one to go. Here he goes here, getting a way better look from this angle of really seeing the bend and the get off of some of these guys. Demarcus Lawrence next in line. Really like the strength that I saw from Dante Fowler Jr. Still got to get low. There you see just the one-handed shot.
The hands for Demarcus Lawrence are just fantastic. They're phenomenal, and it just goes to show why he is and remains one of the most valuable players on the Cowboys roster. As much maligned as he can be in some of the fan base at times, the bottom line is Demarcus Lawrence, the defense prior to the arrival of Micah Parsons, the defense went and did not go however Demarcus Lawrence did in any particular game. So even in his quiet games, he was able to get pressures, and pressures to me count as much as sacks. They don't necessarily show up as flashy as the sacks do, but they matter because they disrupt plays, and anything that can disrupt the opposing backfield is going to be of value for the Dallas Cowboys.
Now let's talk about Sam Williams here for a little bit. Rookie out of Ole Miss, second-round pick. He was picked really as one of those guys to replace Randy Gregory, and if you're really expecting him to provide the pressure that Gregory had earlier at least in the 2021 season, then you're probably going to be a little bit disappointed. But what can his skill set bring to the table as we see him on this drill?
I love the blend of physicality and finesse between he and Durance Armstrong. Durance Armstrong definitely has power. Let's not take anything away from him in that category. But at the same time, Durance Armstrong is much more refined at this stage in his career, has a bit more finesse at this stage in his career. I think Sam Williams is going to come in and provide kind of that thunder versus lightning combo at the right defensive end opposite Demarcus Lawrence. I think Sam Williams is a punisher with his hands. He's definitely not a guy, if you're an offensive tackle, he's not a guy you want to allow up into your pass, because he's going to bull rush you back into the opposing backfield, put you in the personal space of the quarterback. So as Demarcus Lawrence said when I asked him yesterday or a couple days ago about the skill set of Sam Williams, he had nothing but high praise, and he actually said that he believes Williams has more tools in his toolbox than the rookie anticipates right now. So that in and of itself lets you know that there's a high ceiling for Sam Williams, and the team expects that he'll be able to make an impact as early as week 1. But as you said, if the expectation from the fan base is that he's going to jump right out there and be an all-pro, I'd say temper that a bit because there's a bit of a learning curve when it comes to rushing the pass from the NFL.
All right, so now we're moving into Team Red Zone. We got to see a little bit of this yesterday, but we thought we would treat you right back to it in a first play straight to Noah Brown. There's a little energy here. The crowd is absolutely phenomenal. The fans have piled in all morning long here in Oxnard. Now we get an opportunity to see really the edge guys going like we just talked about a little bit ago, Patrik, but also we get to see the offense try and take another step like they did on Friday, rather.
And the big thing for the offense is going to be, how does the offensive line come together? Obviously, they're into the offseason with a ton of questions. You let Connor Williams walk in free agency. You lose Matt Willetsko to a shoulder strain, at least for the next couple of days. There's going to be a status update on him here shortly. But how the Cowboys offensive line handles their opposing teammates in drills like this, in 2-minute drill, that's going to be telling of what the Cowboys can expect going forward in the season. And they're going to have to really play up and play big, because Dak Prescott needs to stay clean, needs to be able to have the space to make his decisions. And then you look at Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott and Rico Dowdle, who is an up-and-coming running back for the Cowboys. All of that is predicated upon, can this offensive line hold off the opposing defensive line? So keep an eye on that when it comes to the Cowboys.
There's Dowdle right there. You just mentioned him a moment ago.
Right on time.
They had Pollard in motion formation. It was a 12 personnel. They had a couple different looks there, and then it was Dowdle that ultimately got the football. But even the play prior to that, you saw Ezekiel Elliott weaving through traffic. He looked crisp,
spry.
looked some cuts back and forth, and, of course, he took it to where it would have been close to a touchdown. Now we've got the twos in here. And note, that's number 15 at quarterback. That's Will Greer instead of Cooper Rush back behind center. Let's see what he has in store on this first play, and they want to go over the middle to Sean McCune picking up what would be a first down.
And this could be a very big season for Sean McCune for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's well known, what happened and or did not happen with the Dalton Schultz contract.
Sure.
So with that, you only have Dalton Schultz on the contract for 2022 by way of a $10.931 million franchise tag, but there's no long-term plan there. The Cowboys are really going to start feeling this tight end situation out. Is Sean McCune going to be able to step up like the Cowboys believe he can? Battled some injury in 2021 that kind of derailed him just a little bit. They went and got Jake Ferguson as a fourth-round pick here. You look at a guy like Peyton Hendershot, had a little bit of a tough practice on day one, but saw some good stuff from him on day 2 and day 3. Looks like between he and Jake Ferguson, they're making some strides here. So it's going to be very interesting, but I believe that at the moment, because of the familiarity with the system, McCune, he has an inside track here at that position.
It's a very young tight end room. Dalton Schultz saying that he is accepting a leadership role this season, and he is looking forward to an exciting year for the Cowboys. Greer lofting it up back of the end zone, grabbed by Simi Fehoko, and then he reaches for the pylon at the same time.
Simi Fehoko is another one that everyone should keep an eye on for a couple reasons. Number one, when he came in with his speed, his quickness, his agility, many thought that he'd be able to hit the ground running with the Cowboys. Struggled a bit as a rookie, but now if you look at the year he's walking into now, there is a lot of availability. The lanes are clear for some of these young receivers to really get out there and fight and battle for reps. You look at the trade of Amari Cooper. You look at Michael Gallup not going to be ready for week 1 per Michael Gallup. They're going to try to figure this out behind CeeDee Lamb for week 1 and beyond.
Low throw to Jake Ferguson, who's running with the first team
Speaking
offense
of.
at the moment. Yeah. Speaking of that young tight end room, saw a couple young receivers in the rotation there. Of course, James Washington in his first year, 26 years old, so not necessarily youthful, but still a veteran. And then you also had Jalen Tolbert, the rookie, in the slot there. Back to the first team. They're working from about the 11-yard line here. Not spreading things out ultimately. They got a bunch of receivers to the far side of the field, and Tony Pollard's in the back with Dak Prescott under center. Toss back to Pollard. Good blocking up front, and there's Pollard maneuvering his way through. How important is the run game going to be in red zone and short yardage situations, kind of like what we're seeing here?
I think it's going to be very important. I think that the Cowboys are going to be able to use that to set up the play action pass and get turn some of these red zone, or as they like to deem it, the go zone, right? They turn that into some of these the touchdowns. I mean, they had at times they were great in the red zone, but at times there was a long stretch where they really just couldn't punch it in.
Let's see if they go to the end zone here. Prescott in the middle of the pocket,
Good
back of
decision.
the
There
end
you
zone,
go.
and a toe tap.
There you
No. They said Jalen Tolbert was out of bounds on the back of the end zone. He tried to get that second foot in there.
One of the few, we're not going to say mistakes, but one of the few times that Jalen Tolbert has not necessarily delivered. He's been having an absolutely phenomenal offseason between mini camp, and he got off to a hot start here in training camp. And the only thing that could have stolen a little bit of the headline from Jalen Tolbert's hot start to the training camp was what we saw T.J. Vasher do yesterday with Kelvin Joseph in coverage.
Speaking of T.J. Vasher, he's off to the right side of the formation from where we are at the moment. He is stacked up with Kevontae Turpin. Now DiNucci having to move out of the way of Quentin Bohanna, who got loose in the backfield.
Which is another guy to watch. When you look at some of these younger guys, Quentin Bohanna obviously going into his second year with the Cowboys, I think you want to watch him as well as a guy like Osa Odigizua. Add them to the rookie fifth-round pick, John Ridgeway, whom I loved looking at in reps yesterday. He is, in fact, a road grader, a ton of strength. Often put his guy into the opposing backfield. I would like to see a little bit more finesse from Ridgeway, but I like what I'm seeing as far as just a raw skill set.
So we got a run here. We'll watch one more play following this one. We're going to rotate a couple of guys in, including an entirely new offensive line. Ian Bunting in the formation. Josh Ball is going to step away. Isaac Alarcon in the middle of there as well.
And I would love to see what Isaac Alarcon can do. Obviously, he's been in the program here for 2 or 3 years now as an international talent. But skill set is there. The physical build is there. Just need to see it all come together for him.
Roll out here from DiNucci. He's cut off by Tyler Coyle. Nice job defensively. And then now they're going to the end zone right in front of us, and no chance for Peyton Hendershot to make the grab. So that's all we're going to get to see here of training camp today here on Training Camp Live, presented by American Airlines. What are your thoughts from what you've seen here in practice number 4?
I like what I'm seeing from both the defensive line and an offensive front, but more particularly the defensive line. It looks like they've been able to get into the opposing backfield, be disruptive, force those quarterbacks, be it Dak, Will Grier, or Ben DiNucci, to make passes they may not have necessarily wanted to make. So it looks like the interior of the defensive line for the Cowboys might be coming together as the team hopes it will.
Hey, a lot of padded practices to come. This is the final unpadded version of Training Camp Live, so plenty more fun highlights coming your way next week starting on Monday. For the first time, Patrik Walker on DallasCowboys.com. I'm Kyle Youmans. We'll see you on Monday for more Training Camp Live presented by American Airlines.